Well, good afternoon, everybody. So as the title says, this is a little bit of advice about table topics. It strikes me that sometimes people are given table topics questions that they consider them to be very difficult. Now, I don't think there is such a thing as a difficult table topics question. There are people that think they're difficult, they perceive them as difficult, and it's really because they don't know how to answer them. So perhaps it's the answer that's more difficult, finding the answer. This week on Monday at Winchmore Hill Speakers, a new club in North London, there was a particular, well, people considered it a particularly difficult question. And it's because it was all sort of put together with lots of long words in a way of asking a question about a political situation. I think it was right at the start of the question threw people because it used the word judiciary. Now that's a long word. It's a polysyllabic word. It's not simple, and you've got to understand what the word means and the context of the word in the question if you're going to answer the question in the way the perpetrator, shall we say, the perpetrator of that question intended, i.e., answer the question with your opinion on that particular matter. Now the person who got the question did a good job. She didn't actually answer the question, but she managed to talk for 2 minutes, and she talked around the question, which was fine. It wasn't really an answer to the question, but she wasn't stumped, which was the main benefit, the main part. However, with a question that's that difficult, I think it was the judiciary. How would the judiciary deal with the problems of the president or something? I can't remember the exact question. It's quite a strange one. How would I have dealt with it? So I think there's 3 ways you can deal with a difficult question, and with a word like judiciary in it at the start, or that stumps you. How can you answer it? Well, the obvious answer is you could just try and answer the question. So if you actually know the answer, or you have an opinion on the question you were asked, assuming it is a question and not a ridiculously silly table topic like imagine you're a table in the field, which we can deal with later. Assuming it's a difficult question, but one that you can answer, well, go ahead and answer the question if that's how you feel you want to do. Particularly if you've got a passion, it's a question you're passionate about. You've given a soapbox. You go with it. Go and answer the question. Try not to upset anybody in the audience. Try and avoid politics if you can. But if you're given a political question, that's what you're asked. Well, maybe you've got to do a political answer. That's the first way of doing it. The second way of doing it would be to perhaps ridicule the question. Ridicule the question. And you can start off with, this particular one had the word judiciary in it. So you could start off by saying, well, look, and this question was written by someone in the audience. So you could have started off by saying, well, and the lady did actually, who wrote this question? And no one owned up. No one owned up. They may have left, or they may have been sitting there too embarrassed to admit that they wrote the question. In which case, you can then deride the question. Well, it's such a stupid question that you can't even admit that you wrote it, eh? That's bad, isn't it? And maybe you get a laugh at that point, but the audience will be on your side. They already feel for you because you've got this really strange question. They're all going, in their minds, they're thinking, well, I'm pretty glad I didn't get that one, because they're on your side. So deride the question. Get a laugh out of it. You can then say, well, who understands? And use whatever the long word is, in this case, judiciary. Who understands what judiciary means? And if no one puts their hands up, you can say, well, it's not just me then. Or if many of them put their hands up, you can say, oh, I'm the only one that doesn't understand it. And on the third thing is, maybe just one person puts their hand up, in which case you can go to them and say, well, explain to me what this word means then, because I have no idea. That might get a laugh. They probably won't explain because they don't really want to take the stage. And so you've already got into the probably 30, 40 seconds into the table topic without having to give a particular answer. You can continue to take the mickey out of the table topic, look at what else it says. And you're on the way to making a table topic. That's the second way of dealing with a table topic like that. And the third way of dealing with any particular table topic is to actually dissect the question. Look at each word and why it's there and what does it mean. Talk about what the general judiciary. Well, we all know the judiciary is to do with the powers and go into what it is. And then if it was something about the president, you can say, well, this is the president of the United States. Of course, we understand that he was elected. Mainly, he won on the back of the colleges voting for him. And as a man from Britain, from Great Britain, the United Kingdom, I don't know what colleges voted for him. Is that Oxford or Cambridge? Maybe Durham? No, surely not. They don't get a vote in America. What's this mean? The colleges voted for him. And you kind of dissect the question until you've used your 2 minutes up. And hopefully in doing so, you've interacted with the audience. You've made some interesting, funny observations. And it's a much better answer, I think, to those particular questions than it would be if you was to actually answer the question and say, when it comes to the law, one should always go to the powers that have the law books there, and the President of the United States should not be able to dictate without recourse to law. That's not going to help. That's not going to give the answer that will entertain the audience. Sure, you do that if you're sitting in a political forum, in there. Now, I did say I'd come back to that thing about if you were asked to be a table in the middle of a field. I actually remember being asked once when I was fairly early in my speaking career within Toastmasters. I was asked once to imagine I'm a park bench. So a similar question did come to me, how I felt as a park bench. Now, I dealt with it, even though I was probably only a year into Toastmasters at the time. I did deal with it. How would I deal with a question like that now? Again, you can deride the question. You can deride, the person who's giving you that question. But, it's okay. Depends who's giving it to you. You can only do it with people that will take the joke. If because you only do it in a funny way. You're not going to deride them, sort of really. You're not going to personally attack them, but you just want to have a chance to make a funny out of it. You could refer back to other people. Maybe someone else has been asked if they're an umbrella and see what they said. Call back to things that have happened before. Of course, if you're the first person, there's no callbacks, except maybe to speeches or previous meetings or things that happened in the press that day. You can look at if there's anything there that comes to mind that you can use. But if you're asked to pretend you're a table in the middle of a field, as I say, I think I would probably not want to pretend. I could talk about the things that have happened and come up with some stories, maybe tell a story of something that's happening in the field. You could pretend you're in a music festival. There's lots of ways you could go with this. But my answer to, my advice to anybody dealing with a table topics question that wants to enjoy table topics and want people to enjoy their table topics, because remember, every time you speak, it's all about the audience. That's what I said to Cambridge City speakers a couple of months ago. It's all about the audience. So to make it all about the audience, you want to make it interesting. So my advice is always look for the offbeat answer. Try to dissect the question, maybe take the mickey out of yourself, take the mickey out of the audience. But whatever you do, try and make it interesting. So there's me signing off for the day on table topics. If you've got anything you want me to talk about, tweet to me on @KevBags. And I will deal with it in a further video on another occasion. Take care. Bye-bye.